All right, so today I want to talk to you about how music theory can help you write your chosen genre better. This is not to say that you cannot write your chosen genre without knowing every little thing about music theory, because if you listen to the songs enough, you'll start to pick up on some of those subtle tendencies that they have that make those genres sound like those genres. But what I'm saying is that if you learn music theory, you can write any genre. All you have to do is look at the tendencies that make that genre what it is. I'm going to run you through some of the stylistic tendencies that you'd be able to pick up on much easier if you knew your music theory, and show you how much better you could be at writing those genres if you learned it. So let's get started. Okay, first up, classical music. This type of music is rooted in clear and predictable structure, a very dominant melody, supported by a simple type of chord structure, not necessarily rooted in a whole lot of chromaticism or differentiation like you would get in jazz. We'll get to that later. But that's kind of what you get with classical music. You'll get a lot of use of dynamics, for instance, a crescendo or a decrescendo to build tension going into next or going into other parts. You have a lot of different styles of music like arias and sonatas and things like that have different movements that sound completely different from one another. Like in a sonata, your first movement will sound very different from your second movement, and it's still part of the same sonata. Another thing you'll get is called counterpoint, which is like a strategic use of melody lines that kind of interact with each other in a purposeful way. They could be moving away from each other or toward each other or in different motions, just playing off of the notes that each line has to accentuate both parts. Okay, jazz music. If you're a jazz player, you are improv centric. um a lot of jazz will incorporate like hand signals so that you can get on stage with a group of people you've never played with before, and you can communicate with people mid-song to say like, hey, tag this part, or we're going to go back to the chorus now, or we're going to loop that part one more time. And they have little hand signals like that because jazz is so improv centric that you need that type of communication when you're playing on stage. If you're playing in an ensemble that doesn't have something already written, a 2-5-1 chord progression is huge in jazz music. It makes it really easy for the person who's soloing or improving over the chord progression to know what notes they have available and where they can go while still keeping in time and in tune with the music. So it doesn't necessarily sound out of place. I know one of the best jokes I hear is that jazz is an excuse to play wrong notes, and it kind of is, but it's in a tactful way. So it's kind of like taking all of the rules that you would learn in a classical theory class and throwing them out the window, but not just for some sort of randomization. Instead, you're doing it in a very specific way for a very specific reason. Jazz also likes to use 7th, 9th, 11th, and 13th chords for more color than your traditional 1-3-5 triad. This type of thing, like I said, it just adds more color, a little bit more body to your notation, and it sounds a lot more intricate. It can give you other places to go and tap into some different emotions and things like that. It's also very much rooted in syncopated rhythms. I personally am a metal drummer. I live and die with my double bass pedal, but most of the things that a jazz player can play with a single kick drum pedal blows my mind. They are, in my opinion, they are on a level way above other musicians. It's incredible some of the things that they can do with syncopation. Okay, rock. And I'll bring metal into this too. This is my chosen genre. And if you love rock and metal, you already know it's very guitar-centric, very guitar-heavy. The guitar is always a front-facing instrument, mostly an electric guitar. But with the guitar, we like to play what are called power chords, which means instead of a 1-3-5 triad, you would just play the 1 and the 5, and you get your harmony from there. It does lose a little bit of texture, in my opinion, sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily take anything away from the song when you do that, if you do it in the right way. And plus, you can always pick up that third somewhere else with a different voicing, with a bass or your singer or something like that. The reason a lot of rock guitar players lean on that power chord is because you can play them in a bar, which means you can fret the 6th string and the 5th string with the same finger, just like that. And you can play 2 notes in a harmony that will sound great every single time. And you can move that around. As long as you're keeping the bar, you'll still be able to play power chords. It gives you more freedom for things like that. Rock music traditionally has a 4/4 backbeat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You will hear some waltzes, especially in some metal music, and some of your rock ballads will have 3/4 time signatures, but predominantly you're getting a 4/4 time signature. Also, pentatonic and blues scales are very prominent in rock and metal music. A lot of people would think, well, I'm playing rock music, I'm not playing blues. But if you know your blues scale, you've probably played it while you were trying to play something that your favorite artist wrote. If you're playing blues music, you're playing rock roots. If you're into rock music, go listen to the blues. That's where your favorite genre came from. And there's a lot to be learned from looking back on those roots. Okay, EDM, your electronic dance music. Very high tempo, almost always in 4/4 time because it's very easy to dance to. Lots of tension builds and then drops. Uses of synths and samples and a lot of electronic, a lot of heavy bass in there, and a lot of DAW work. Things like sidechain compression. And with EDM, because it's dance music, you're not really so much focused on the composition itself. As long as you can bob your head or move your body to it, you don't care. So there's a lot of repetition because it facilitates that. If it's repetitive, you know what's coming, you feel more comfortable moving to it, you're more likely to dance. And then they can add subtle variations to those repetitions, like just an extra added melody line or something over top of a line you've heard a bunch of times, so that they can use it to build that tension going into one of those traditional bass drops. Okay, pop music. Almost always 4/4, not always, but mostly 4/4. You're going to get very simple structures: verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, done. The reason for that is not that they're boring or bad musicians. It's that they're trying to compose for a broad audience. And as much as you want to play to the top of your ability level all the time, when you do that, you're really only going to impress the other musicians in the crowd. And there are not as many of them as there are people that just want to listen to music. So, pop is going to be inherently a little bit simpler in terms of composition because they don't want to lose their listener. So, 4/4 time, easy rhythms, simple chord progressions, powerful hooks, strong melodies, repetition, so that you hear that hook and you can sing it in your head. There's a lot of people that want to knock pop music because it's simple, but I'll bet you remember that hook, right? But when it comes to pop music, virtuosos need not apply because it's designed for broad appeal. You're not trying to impress anybody with your playing ability. You're trying to make a song that gets stuck in the listener's head that they can't forget. And last but not least, country music. Country, especially nowadays, it has evolved into a lot more of a pop type of sound. And I'm hearing country these days that are even including things like trap beats and a little more of hip hop and R&B roots and things like that. I always kind of say that country is like pop with southern instrumentation. And I don't say that in a bad way. I mean that because from a theoretical standpoint, you could take a pop song with a simple chord progression, with an easy to understand song structure like verse, chorus, and you can add some southern instrumentation to it like a steel guitar. And it's a country song now. They are very close together, pop and country. More so as the genre itself evolves. It kind of leans a little bit more towards those popular genres. The main thing that you'll get when you're writing a country song is those simple progressions and easy to understand song structure, but you'll get the stylistic southern instruments like steel guitars or fiddles or harmonicas. Your vocalist will write lyrics as though they're telling a story, or they will be singing about things that are common to Southern culture. For instance, driving pickup trucks, living an outlaw life, shooting guns, fishing, hunting, hoedowns in the barn, and things like that, right? Things that cater to the type of audience that they're trying to write for. That's the big thing I want you to think about when it comes to writing different genres, is a lot of these stylistic tendencies will overlap. They will be the same from genre to genre. It's the little things in between that cater to specifically the audience you're trying to hit. So if you can learn your theory and you can apply these stylistic tendencies like I've just described, you're going to be able to write your chosen genre much better than you would if you were just listening to a bunch of country songs and trying to figure out what it was that made them good. You might get lucky, and I'm not saying you can't, but you can speed up the process and make it a whole lot more repeatable if you learn your music theory. I hope you enjoyed it.